But the people you can really learn from are the people who are somewhat disappointed if they couldn't use your product every day.
Nadia Tatlow, thank you so much for being on my show. How are you?
Good. Nice to meet you finally.
Definitely. Thank you for being here. Vast experience in PR and marketing, the CEO of Shift. I want to go back before we get into your professional journey. Where do you come from, and how do you go about your journey wanting to become at the end a CEO of a startup?
Yeah, I guess so I am Canadian, based in Victoria, BC, and that's where Shift has been founded and grown from day one. So the whole team is based here on the West Coast. My background, I actually moved to Victoria about 7 years ago from Toronto. So I did my undergrad and schooling at Queen's University in Kingston. And I guess before that, I had moved around a lot growing up with my family. So I think, I've always been very entrepreneurial about the way I approach work, and that's kind of been a theme from day one for me. I've also, I think, lived in a lot of different places, and that has influenced a lot about, I think, the way I work and the way I want to work, and just how I think about work in general. So I think, yeah, when I found Victoria, to be honest, I moved here because I thought it was such a beautiful city. I have some family here, so there was that was kind of calling me from moving across the country, in my 20s. So yeah, I think wanting to be able to live in Victoria and build a company and sort of achieve all the things in my career that I want to do. It seemed like a kind of an awesome opportunity when I originally took a job out in Victoria to start building that out, and yeah, I couldn't be happier to be here. It's not a bad place to be, even through this COVID and pandemic stuff we're all going through.
So how do you find yourself, you're starting with PR and marketing, right? You've held several positions in that world before initiating Shift. So what was it about that industry that interested you, and why make that transition later on to becoming the CEO of Shift?
Yeah, so I guess the reason I got into PR, I remember the first time I heard what public relations was, I was actually doing in university, I took a summer job at a daycare, like a Montessori daycare, and I got chatting with one of the parents that I just seemed kind of like a cool guy. And I remember he had founded his own PR consulting business. And so that was really my first time getting any introduction to what PR was. I did my undergrad in political science. So and I love, I love talking about politics, and I love, that world of, so but I also realized, I was graduating kind of post 2008, and realizing political science wasn't the direct path into the kind of job that I wanted to get. So after talking to him, I remember thinking, this is such an amazing kind of introduction into business, and I think a lot about business, comes down to PR, and whether it's kind of business PR and brand PR or personal PR, it's all very important, and also to telling the story and the narrative about your work or your company or yourself is so critical to success. So I decided to do a post-grad program in public relations. Met a bunch of amazing people through that, and it was a great network to kind of jumpstart my career. So that launched me into working at a marketing agency in Toronto, which I really enjoyed. But ultimately, I think I saw myself moving more into the product side. I think I saw the highs and lows of what it is to work in an agency. And you learn a lot, and you move fast, and you really learn kind of the service role. And you get to exposure to so many cool brands and products. But I think I realized pretty quickly that I wanted to, build something of my own, and really kind of be the person behind a brand rather than kind of serving someone else's.
So there comes Shift. So what is Shift? What are you trying to do there?
So Shift, I think in the shortest amount of words, is a browser for work. So we started Shift about 3 years ago, really as really solving for the pain point of multiple email accounts. So, and there's a little bit of backstory in that Shift actually spun out of a company I was working at. So I was managing marketing across a bunch of different brands at a company here in Victoria. And there were a few of us that sort of, would jump on a project every time we had a new idea to, product idea. We would sort of fire up, Nadia at whatever this new product idea was. So domain and email, and that meant calendar and drive associated with each of those. So we could, we were very much in this world of multiple email accounts. Like I think I had 7 or 8 at the time we launched Shift.
Wow.
So that's one side of the workflow pain point that we were solving for. But we approached Shift from day one as we have this pain point ourselves. Let's build something to solve for this, and then see the reaction and the response, and sort of build iteratively on the product from there. So almost as soon as we launched Shift, we started getting feedback that people like, this is amazing. I also have this pain point. A lot of people working in design or marketing or consulting businesses where they also kind of lived the same experience as us. And then they also, often had extensions and apps and basically all these other things they were doing at work in the browser that they wanted to move out. So that really fired up our engine and told us that we had, early signal of product market fit. And that really kind of the vision for Shift was much, much bigger than an email service. It was really a browser for work.
So when you say browser for work, what does that actually mean tangibly? If I go to Shift right now, what would I see? Yeah,
so you can download Shift at tryshift.com. It's a downloadable desktop app. So it sits on your computer, just like, if you use the Slack's desktop app. Right. It's a similar kind of download experience. So it basically it's built on the Electron framework, which is actually the same framework that Slack is built on. And you download it for free, you set it up, and then we have a premium experience that you can upgrade to if you decide you need all the apps and all the extensions, unified search, workspaces, all that. So really, the way I look at it is most of us now will operate, throughout our workday with a browser kind of open at all times. And everyone has a very different workflow. Some people open multiple browser windows to, organize their workflow. Some people actually have the are consistent about Gmail profiles, and that's amazing if you are. And so they'll organize work and personal and whatever else they do by Gmail profiles. Other people will use multiple browsers, so Safari, Chrome, Edge, whatever it is that you like. But what we found is that this workflow experience is very different for everyone, and there's no one way that everyone likes to work and is consistent about working. So we want to kind of give you this flexibility with Shift, but also spoon feed you a much more organized, sort of streamlined experience, so you can actually get work done and stop having to kind of do the administrative. There's a lot of buzz out there about work about work. So trying to remove that work about work for you, so that you can actually focus on do focused work and kind of eliminate distractions.
So if you're looking at your insights into the product, and it's interesting because you say you transitioned from PR and marketing gravitating more towards the product, and then really going through that entrepreneurial process of finding product market fit, spinning off of different products, pivoting, and then finding your sweet spot. What were some of your aha moments along the way with Shift that you said, I now understand, I have an insight that a lot of others may not have right now?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting one. Like, I think it's been very, sometimes I think about the way we've approached the business very much as horse before the cart. So I think my background in marketing and the company that we spun out of was very much along this, performance minded when it came to marketing. So prove that there's product market fit before you over invest in in building a cart that might not solve the right problem. So it was an aha moment when, and probably the biggest aha moment in the early days, when our customers started asking for, and very early customers started asking for, extensions and apps, and basically, okay, we want more than just email. Email is kind of a focus point, but it's not our entire workday. So they were asking for that, and you always have to balance out, I think, running a company, how much you listen to customers and how much you and how long you wait, and how many requests for something,
Right.
especially in the early days, need to pile up before you really take action. But it was so clear. So that was an aha moment very early on. I think, I think now what we're working on is really more focused on how to help people work better together in Shift. So this has been another really, I think, aha moment. We all have our workflows and sort of our, I think, our individual work styles. And with Shift, it's interesting because we talk a lot about like tab hoarding and sort of that mess that can pile up on your computer that you actually don't want anyone else to see.
I'm looking at that mess right now.
Yeah, I mean, by the end of a workday, which you're at, I guess, you could have dozens of tabs open, windows, and you don't even know where your day started or ended. And yeah, and then that's a pretty common.
That's shameful. You just close all of them because you would just want to start scratch. You don't even want to understand what you had over there, and
Yeah.
It's awful every day.
Totally.
The same thing.
Totally, yeah, and I think that's so common, but there's also sort of some shame around that. So we wanted to help people streamline that, and also sort of better prepare themselves for when you're, especially with all this work from home stuff, when you're jumping on a video call with someone, and then all of a sudden they want you to share your screen, and you want to look and feel prepared. So we built a layer on Shift called Workspaces. And essentially you can think of that as like a focused collection of tabs, apps,
Right.
bookmarks that you would actually want to work with someone else on. So you can easily just share it with your collaborators, and then there you go. You've got this clean place to get stuff done. So that was a big aha moment too, is that, as individual as your personal workflow every day is, we don't work in silos. Most of us don't work by ourselves. And I think the more we work from home and the more we're forced to do Zoom for everything, the more we kind of have to put purpose back in the way we work together.
Right. I think that's really interesting. One of the things that I was fascinated by this past year, in one of my classes at Stanford, we read a case study about Superhuman by Rahul and a first round magazine, and it was talking about how he found his sort of NPS score and how he figured out who are his target customers and how to accelerate the growth on certain areas of his company to target those customers. Do you have any process that you're thinking through of how do I cluster my customers, and how do I really make sure I maximize on those that really love our product?
Yeah, that's interesting. I think Superhuman has done an amazing job of that and of understanding their core audience and speaking to them. Even the onboarding flow that they did, and the fact that it's really all they force the word of mouth. Like I think you still have to have an introduction to their team in order to get Superhuman, so you can't even just download it, right? Which is really interesting, and it really allows for that word of mouth, but across the internet, to feel a lot more authentic. So what we do is we definitely see demographic consistencies, and groupings of people that we know Shift will really speak to. But I think our audience is very, very broad. Like we have, and the more diverse and broadly we can speak to people, the better. So, we do things like onboard, like there's surveys within Shift where you can, where we ask things about job title and industry, so that we can better understand and better cater to each of those people. We end up seeing a lot of I think millennials are a huge part of our core audience, because so many of us have, work life, maybe a side hustle and a personal life that a lot of those part of those lives happen on the internet. So you have email accounts and calendars and apps that go with each one. So helping people organize and make sense of that work-life balance that I think we're all trying to achieve. So we see consistency with that, but with the onboarding process and even NPS scores, actually Superhuman did a really interesting survey of their users that we also we saw and ended up using for our customer base as well, where they asked the customer base, how disappointed would you be if you no longer had whatever product, so Superhuman or Shift?
Nice.
And that was awesome because it kind of the results, we actually got the exact same results with our audiences as he had laid out in his article about it, where, I think it was 25% of people were very disappointed if no Shift, 50% were somewhat disappointed, and 25% were not disappointed. And those results have informed a lot of what we do and who we do it for. The key point that really stuck with me with that is that you're always going to have this 25%. Well, you're not always, but you really are amazed by this 25% of kind of super fans. And we get those, those ambassadors that, Shift is their daily driver and they can't live without it. And we love those people, and we love talking to those people and getting their feedback. But the people you can really learn from are the people who are somewhat disappointed if they couldn't use your product every day. So really kind of digging into like where that somewhat came from has been a great or a very informative exercise for us.
I think one of the things that I took away from doing that exploration and understanding, and as a Superhuman fan myself, it was about understanding that it's okay to sort of give up on certain groups and focus on others. And I think it's almost intuitive for us to see that there's a group that really doesn't care, and you're almost insulted that they don't care. So you want to work to win their validity and get them to join you, and you don't even realize that they might not be the right group to maximize your efforts on, especially as you're a fast-growing early-stage startup. You can only focus so much of your energy on certain areas, and it's definitely important to know where to focus them. What has been the most challenging and most rewarding part of this journey for you? And one thing that I wanted to bring up that we didn't get to discuss was you didn't actually start out as the CEO of Shift, right? You started out as a general manager there. You've proven yourself, and then you became the CEO. But what were some of the biggest challenges and rewards along the way?
I think the challenges are kind of tied into exactly what you just said, which is especially with Shift, like our audience is basically anyone who uses a browser at work all day, which is all of us. And we can prioritize the way we approach customer acquisition, which is really, a big part of our competitive edge and how we've really grown as fast as we had. So I think it's segmenting your audience when you have it's very exciting to have a massive audience. It's also a huge technical challenge. But it's really, finding ways to splice and dice that audience so you can tackle the most important pieces first and speak to the most important audiences first. So now I think 3 years in, it's fun to be able to have a core engine of people that we know we can reach very efficiently, but then consistently sort of layer on and broaden who we speak to and how we speak to them. So that's a big focus right now is really broadening that. The second part of your question, what was the other part?
The rewards. Some of the most rewarding parts of it.
The rewarding part about it is, I think, building a team. Like building a team is so critical to, ultimately, you go from kind of doing everything yourself with a couple other people. So, and then really sort of hiring the people who are ultimately going to build the product in the later stages. So I think it's rewarding and challenging, but I think a lot about, the builder, the creator, the builder, and the optimizer. And where we're at now, we have, a significant customer base of people that are using Shift every day to drive their workday. So we have a lot of responsibility to those people. So there's a ton of optimizations and bug fixes and requests and customer success, tickets that we're dealing with all day. So that is a huge part of the business now, that we have this responsibility to these customers year over year. But you have to keep creating and you have to keep building. So balancing that out, and then I think ultimately identifying people on your team as one of those or some combination of those. It's definitely not black and white, and people evolve over time. But at the stage we're at, we do need all three of those. And I think there is, it's exciting because there's so much opportunity for everyone on the team to sort of evolve into the positions that are best for them, and sort of grow with the company. So yeah, I think that's it. That's rewarding, and that's rewarding for me. I think a lot about it as almost manifesting our own growth trajectory and manifesting what we want out of our own career, which has always been sort of my driving force.
100%. I think that's just wonderful. And I want to thank you for being so generous with your time. 20 minutes go by very, very fast. And I really appreciate you to do this. And before we leave, I have to put you on the spot one time, and I have to ask you for 3 words that you would use to describe yourself. Or if I ask anybody that is working with you or for you, what are 3 words that they would use to describe Nadia?
I think probably excitable, open-minded, and hardworking.
I love it. Nadia, thank you so much. This was really great, and I can't wait to share this with the world.
Thank you so much, Michael.